We came back to Deep Slit last year in 2009. It was about 5 years after we completed the original financial diaries. And we wanted to see what had changed. Because after all, in South Africa, there were two things that had been introduced. First of all, the financial sector charter had made banking services that much closer to people in the townships and the rural areas. It pushed the branches and the ATMs right on their doorstep. The second thing is that a new financial product was introduced, a basic bank account called Mzansi. And we wanted to see, did this different product really make a difference to how these people manage their money? What we found was actually quite good news. People were transacting quite a lot more on their bank accounts, and a number of people had opened up bank accounts in the nearby mall. And we actually found as well that people were saving more in those bank accounts. But that meant that they were saving less in another financial device. So which was that? Well, we found that people were saving less in their houses. They weren't saving less in their stokvels, in their savings clubs, which makes a lot of sense. So those savings clubs are still working for them. But saving money in the house, generally speaking, really doesn't work well for anyone. It's convenient, but it's very easy to lose the money. It's very easy to spend it on something that you didn't mean to spend it on. It's easy for people to come and borrow it from you. If you have the money tied up, it tends to be better for financial management. Having banks closer to people and that offering a low-cost bank account did seem to have some hand in getting the money out of people's houses and into the bank. They still kept money in their houses. You're not going to change that completely. But the proportion of what they saved tended to tilt a little bit more to the bank. We realized that when we returned, people were tilting their financial portfolios a little bit more towards bank savings and away from saving in the house. We thought that at the end of the day, that was actually quite a good change. So it gives us something of a blueprint in terms of how we think about what the impact should be of improved financial services. It's not that people will wholesale shift out of one instrument and out of informal instruments into formal instruments. Rather, it's that they are going to tilt their portfolio. And hopefully in doing that, it helps make them less vulnerable. After all, a lot of times what we're thinking about here, what we're aiming for, is this enormous change, an increase in income, a rise out of poverty. But what financial services can really do for someone is it can make them less vulnerable while they're trying to pursue that slow path out of poverty. It can keep them from slipping back. And that's a lot of what we found in the intervening years between 2004 and 2009. The way we capture this information is we use this technique called the financial diaries. Now, we didn't have households keep their own diaries. That would have never really worked, not only because some of the households that we found in Bangladesh and India are illiterate, but also we were capturing really detailed data. And households would have never had the patience or the determination to really capture these types of cash flows that we needed. So rather, we had a field worker interview them every other week for a year. And they took down all their sources of income, all their expenditures, and all the little ways that they managed their money in between. Selling assets, buying assets, paying for an emergency, absolutely everything. If a household changed at all, if somebody came into the household or out and it changed their sources of income, we captured that too. So we knew exactly how they were handling their lives, their financial lives, over the course of the year. And we really found that it came down to three things. First of all, we knew that households had low incomes. And we knew through the course of the study that these incomes were very irregular and that they had a lot of unexpected expenses. And the last thing is that we knew that they were using a portfolio of financial instruments to try to manage all these really jagged cash flows. And sometimes those financial instruments would help in a particular aspect, but it really didn't match the cash flows that they were working from. They had financial instruments that weren't appropriately matched to the money that they were trying to manage. So this really brought us to this idea that the hidden tragedy of poverty is not only that the poor have low incomes, it's also that they don't have the financial tools to really manage what little money they have. And that's where extending financial services to the poor, appropriate financial services, services that have an appropriate mechanism and an appropriate product design really can make a huge difference to their lives. Not in raising them up out of poverty immediately, but making them less vulnerable so they can continue that march out of poverty along generations.
When I first went to Manfred, the respondents were not willing to share everything about their finances with me. But then I could see that they are seeing this strange person coming to them and starting asking questions around their monies, and they didn't like it. And I knew at the back of my mind that as time went on, I was going to be able to befriend them, and then they'll start opening up to me and telling me more about their instruments. They didn't know exactly that I'm looking for instruments from them. And they just thought, oh, this person has come to just trace on our ways and trace on our monies. Towards the end of the study, that's when they were just free to tell me about almost everything, about all their instruments. They're just popping up and they are not aware that it's the instruments that I was looking for in the first place. I got to know that they have these different types of instruments, like the Stokvels, the Umgalelos, and all these various types of burial societies that they run in their villages. So I guess it needs one to have more time with the respondents so they can start opening up, and then they give you everything that you're looking for. What surprised me is that I thought I was in the village where I think people are very poor, and I didn't expect to find so many instruments. I got to know that poor people can manage their money in various ways.